So Joe Biden has decided to create a set of unity task force tasked with uniting the party behind the presumptive Democratic nominee. So you can see here, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are building new policy-based task force. So basically you've got various different types. You've got, sort of immigration task force, a climate change task force, a criminal justice task force, et cetera, got a couple others. And basically, you have establishment members and you have progressive members. And so the idea is, this is sort of uniting the party. He's showing the left that he's listening to us with these task force. Let me just give you an example. Let me just sort of show you. So this is sort of the list of the task force here, the members of the task force here. Make it bigger for you. You can see, you've got AOC and John Kerry for the climate change task force for healthcare. You've got Pramila Jayapal with Murthy. You've got Sarah Nelson, Karen Bass for economy. So you just sort of have a mix of different people here. Got a different mix here. Now AOC has decided to accept her nomination to the task force. You can see this is her tweet here saying, after conferring with grassroots activists and climate allies, I am accepting Bernie Sanders' nomination to co-chair the Climate Unity Task Force with Secretary John Kerry. Our planet is dangerously imperiled, and wherever there are decisions to be made, the people must have a voice. And so that's sort of AOC's reason, because she actually did come out with a video basically talking about this, saying that, look, she wasn't super sure about joining this thing, because if it really was just going to be window dressing, if it really was just going to be I'm sitting there to appease, to be a chess piece for Joe Biden to help, appease the left, placate us, et cetera, that she wasn't going to do it. So she came out with a video basically talking about this, that she consulted with various kind of climate allies, and the decision that she came to was to join the task force, because even though it does look like it's window dressing, at least there's a voice in the room. That's her argument. That's why she's decided to accept it. That's what she's saying. Now, these task forces, as you might have guessed based on the way that I was describing that, have come under a lot of criticism from the left. A lot of progressives, especially a lot of, like the YouTube political commentators that I've seen make videos about this, are very, very critical of these. They're basically saying that this is complete window dressing. This is complete nonsense. It's, it's basically just meant to placate us. And honestly, I agree. Like, these things are nonsense. Like, look, these are literally nothing. Like, why do you need a task force to, like, what is it? Is a task force to decide if you support Medicare for all? Like, I don't know. Let me make a task force. Like, I don't know. Maybe not. Like, and when it comes to immigration, when it comes to climate change, like, let me look into a Green New Deal. Now, look, do we need a task force? Do we need, like, scientists and researchers to figure out how to respond to climate change best? Like, do we need to be consulting with the scientists? Yeah, of course, obviously. But that's not really what this is. This is about uniting the party behind Joe Biden, putting progressives into a task force, which probably won't have any real leverage, any kind of significant contributions to the policy platforms. Like, I want tangibles, right? Like, if Joe Biden's going to end up earning my vote, he has to give me tangibles. He has to say, look, I'm going to do these specific things. This is what I'm interested in. Like, I can't meet you here, but I can meet you there, and we can have a deal. We can work it out. We can figure it out, right? Like, that's where I'm at. Like, Joe Biden, you've got to earn my vote. And I'm not saying, like, indefinitely I would never vote for Joe Biden. I'm just saying you've got to earn my vote. Like, if you want me to vote for you, you've got to earn it. You might have, you watching, you might have different standards than I might have, and that's okay. Like, we all have our own different standards for, how we feel, like what it would take to win our vote, right? And that's what it's about, right? But it's clear that these task forces really are just window dressing. However, all that said, how they're window dressing, et cetera, does that mean that AOC shouldn't have accepted the position? Honestly, I don't think so, right? Like there's some people attacking AOC for accepting the nomination to the climate task force. Personally, my opinion on it is, like, guys, look at her, like, from her position, right? Like, if you decided to run for Congress, and you didn't even really expect to win, but then you won your seat in Congress, and I'm out here making videos about you, and, you're in Congress, and then Joe Biden decides to nominate you for a climate change task force, even if you think that you're not really going to have any voice, my guess is you're probably going to take the task force, because there's that, you're at least a voice in the room, right? Like, your opinions are at least like a voice in the room. Like, you'll have a platform to at least say something. So, like, from her perspective, I wouldn't necessarily attack AOC for deciding to accept the nomination. I would attack Joe Biden for deciding to do this and not actually appeasing on actual policy. Now, some of this actual criticism can land on Bernie Sanders also, by the way. Like, I'm not like, I mean, you guys know I supported Bernie Sanders, but actually, you know, when it comes to this, Bernie Sanders is kind of to blame a little bit here, because Bernie Sanders, like, part of dropping out of the race, or I should say suspending his campaign, was related to like basically convincing Joe Biden to set up these policy task force, which probably aren't going to have any kind of leverage. So that was the concessions which Bernie Sanders managed to make. I think he could have made significantly more. Like, he really could have. Like, Bernie Sanders has a significant voice, significant leverage in a lot of the electorate. If Bernie Sanders decided to really play hardball, say, look, I'm not going to back you. I mean, this is one of the things Kyle Kulinski has been saying on his channel. But look, if Bernie Sanders had just walked in and said, look, I'm not going to back you in November, in October, I'm not going to be out there with you if you don't do X, Y, Z, Bernie Sanders probably could have gotten significant leverage. He might not have gotten everything he wanted, sure, obviously, but he might have been able to get us actual tangibles as opposed to a task force. So definitely there's some criticism to be made on Bernie Sanders. There just is when it comes to this. However, I don't think that that means that we should attack AOC for, like, deciding to go on the committee or decide to co-chair it, because, like, I mean, can you really blame her? Like, I don't, like, I'm not really sure what that's about, because if you go through, there's, like, on Twitter, for instance, there's a lot of people, like, criticizing AOC. I don't really think that that's necessary. I think the criticism should be directed at Joe Biden. That's my opinion. That's how I look at it. That's how I see it. So it is a bit of a debate. Now, one of the interesting things that we are seeing right now, so this is sort of an article about this. I just wanted to show you guys this quote down here. So you can see here, Republicans decided to attack Joe Biden for putting AOC on this task force here. So you can see here, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are two sides of the same socialist coin. Now, with his full embrace of AOC's radicalism, Biden is the bannerman for the socialist agenda. You can see that's a release from the Republican National Committee. So unbelievably ridiculous statement there, and it just goes to show they're going to call you a socialist anyway. They're going to call you a socialist no matter what. So, you know, a lot of people were criticizing Bernie Sanders for using the term socialist, democratic socialist, when he was campaigning, even though he's running on social democratic platforms. I think that's a fair debate to be had, whether or not he should have or should not have used the term socialist, but it's quite clear they're just going to call you a socialist anyway, even though this is complete window dressing and it isn't really, like, it's not clear that anything's going to come out of it. Maybe there will. Like, I would love to be proven wrong, right? Like, I'm not saying indefinitely. I would love to be proven wrong. And, you know, AOC with this task force manages to pull out a serious policy concession. I would love to be proven wrong on this. So we're going to have to see. But it's quite clear that they're just going to call you a socialist regardless. They're calling Joe Biden a socialist, one of the most moderate people to really run. And actually, this is actually really, really an important thing to note about politics, which is that, you know, we love to think that, oh, well, someone would be persuaded if they just heard my message, if they just heard what I was trying to say clearly. And that might be the case, right? Like, leftists say that a lot. They love to say that, like, look, if they just understood what we were talking about, what we were saying, they would be persuaded. And honestly, that might be the case. That really might be for a lot of, you know, working class individuals. However, honestly, they aren't hearing your message clearly because it's always being filtered through this kind of stuff. So the incentive for the Republican National Committee right now is to frame Joe Biden as a lefty, that he's moved so far to the left, that he's not a centrist, that he's not a moderate, because they actually are worried about losing some of those, some of those more centrist, some of those more moderate swing voters, because there are a number of Republicans who are turned off by Donald Trump, but they voted for him last time because they were so afraid of Hillary Clinton, and they're worried that because of the fact that Joe Biden is more moderate than Hillary Clinton, that Joe Biden might be able to, you know, sort of get some of those voters, get some of those people from them. And so the Republican Party is basically trying to frame Joe Biden as a lefty, that he's compromised by Bernie Sanders, that he's compromised by the AOCs of the world, and that's how they think they're going to win. I don't think personally that that's a particularly effective strategy, but it is the card that they're playing. It is what they're going for, how they're trying to, you know, frame this election, that Joe Biden is a socialist, that Joe Biden, is a far lefty, that he's had to make so many significant concessions to Bernie Sanders, to us progressives, in order to make his win, that and obviously they're speaking to Republicans here, they're saying that you can't vote for him, right? So that's the argument that we're seeing come out from Republicans. I mean, we're also seeing them trying to frame Joe Biden as pro-China, etc., but we're also seeing them trying to, make that sort of socialist connection there, which is a bit ridiculous, but I think that it just has the effect really of watering down the attack of socialism. People people grow up, it's like, well, if that guy is a socialist, then I guess I'm a socialist, whatever. So I think in the long run it'll probably help socialists, honestly, if I'm being completely honest. That's my opinion, but we'll have to see how it plays out. We'll have to see what happens. So but anyway, I just wanted to update you guys on that. If you did like this video, I'd appreciate if you hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thanks.